Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Friday, November the 18th, 2016, and it is with great honor and a distinct pleasure that I welcome back to the show for another casual conversation, Mr. Louis Cammarosano from Small Gold. How you doing today, Louis?
Doing grand, Rory. How are you?
I'm doing all right, and
Excellent.
we have a lot to talk about, so we should probably just go ahead and get started. What do you think?
Let's head on over.
Head on over. Here we go.
So basically, like this year, if you look, the Roosevelt is the lowest so far, other than the new one. Other than the new one, which will probably sell. They just may stop it at 24.9, but
or 30. They may stop it at 30.
Yeah, they're not going to do much more than 40. That's for sure. But if you look recently, it's only 2011 when a couple of them sold 100,000. Normally, these are 30,000 mintages, right?
Right.
I mean, this year you had two. One was 105, one was 75. But generally, they range from 200 to 1.25. Even 1.25 is no big deal, right? I mean, it's 126.7. It's not a lot.
No, that's what I find very surprising is the low mintage on all of these coins, because if you go back and look at 2010, the first year that they were produced, I mean, each coin, and there was 5 of them, they produced 33,000 coins each. It looks like that was a cap at that time. That was
the 2010s. But then in 2012, you had 2 coins that only did 20: the Hawaiian volcanoes and the Denali National Park.
Exactly.
And I've seen those for $350.
The Denali,
the Hawaiian
volcano. The Hawaiian, yeah.
I guess because it's cool looking. We got the smoke coming out of the top of the volcano. Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a regular quarter, one of those I found, in change. But it's not the same dramatic, I guess, when you have the big 5-ounce.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I like about the America the Beautiful coin series, is that you've got this, this really big surface where you can really, paint a picture. It's kind of like albums, when you and I were growing up versus CDs. You've got the album, you've got a 12 by 12 surface, so you can really appreciate the artwork, as opposed to a CD that's 3 by 3 inches or 4 by 4 inches, whatever it is. And you really can't appreciate, the artwork of Kelly Mouse, or whoever. I mean, there were some really cool album covers, and the America the Beautiful coins, for me, are the same thing, because you've got this just beautiful artwork that you can really appreciate. But if you look at like 2010, the first year, each coin, there was 33,000 minted. But then the very next year, in 2011, I mean, the numbers are just absolutely crazy. There's 126,700 for the first two, 104,000 for the third one, and then 58,000 and 48,000 for the last two. I mean, that's double. It's triple in some cases, or quadruple for those first two, what they did in 2010. But then in 2012, everybody was like, well, wait a minute.
Well, but even so, put it all in perspective, Rory. That's 465,000
total
5-ounce coins made that year for 2.3 million ounces of silver. So even though it looks like it was a huge year for the America the Beautiful coin 2011, it's only 2.3 million ounces of silver used, and that's half of a good month of American Silver Eagles being made. So they really are, the amount of silver, the number of coins minted, even in the 2011 when we think they sold a lot, these coins they're not sold in any large quantity whatsoever.
No, especially if you compare it to like what we're looking at for this year. I mean, you and I have been trading emails for several weeks now about the end number for 2016. I mean, and it looks like it's going to be 37 million. And that's the number I'm hanging my hat on, is 37 million even. And if they go a little bit above that, I'll be very surprised. But I'm pretty sure that that's going to be the number. And if you compare 465,100 coins to 37 million coins,
Right.
that's huge, huge, huge difference.
And then go from your big extremes when they sold 47 million coins to the low in 2012 when they only sold 113,000 of those America the Beautiful coins.
Right. And so as far as a collector's coin, which is what I'm looking at, that's the part that I've come to appreciate is that aspect of it. And
Well, if you look, Rory, at the price of these coins when they first come out, they're not selling for a high premium. I mean,
right,
you pay for 5 ounces, you pay basically, I haven't done the math, but it's probably very similar than if you bought 5 1 ounce Silver Eagles. There's not much of a premium on these large coins. But in the aftermarket, I guarantee you a 2015 American Silver Eagle that they made 47 million of is going to get you spot plus a small, whatever the premium is. But the one of the 2015 America the Beautiful coins, like the Blue Ridge Parkway or the Bombay Hook National Wild Refuge, already trades at a premium to what you
already.
might have than what you would have paid for it.
Yeah.
So if you're going to buy 5 ounces of silver, why
Uh,
instead of buying five all the same thing, where all they do is change the date on the American Silver Eagle, you can get one of these coins and you can at least see something different and get some premium when you won't go to sell it later on.
Yeah, and you and I were talking just a moment ago, as far as the Teddy Roosevelt, which I've got the Teddy Roosevelt, I've got Harper's Ferry, I've got Cumberland Gap, and I believe I've got the Shawnee. All are the 2016 coins, and so far, as of today, they've only sold a total of 276,800 coins.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm hanging my hat on 37 million American Silver Eagles, where the only thing that changed is the date, since 1986. I mean, that's a big difference. And the Teddy
And they're
Roosevelt,
U.S. mint. They're U.S. mint coins. Now, the
exactly.
one thing, what I worry about, I really should have been prepared and looked at this, but you know that the U.S. Silver Eagle is legal tender,
Yes.
and it's $1. Now, the Canadian maples, 1 ounce, are $5. You know what the face value of these coins, these 5 ounce America the Beautiful coins, are 25 cents. I've always wondered if there ever was the government wanted to recall their silver, claiming that it's theirs, because it's a government minted item. They'd give you $1 for the Silver Eagle, and they try to give you a quarter for this large 5 ounce bullion coin. I thought it was odd that it says $quarter on the coin itself.
Yeah.
Even
Well,
though it's a 5 ounce, it's far from it's never going to happen. But it's still interesting that they make it as a replica for a $quarter.
yeah,
It's worth
I would think that,
$100.
that a lot of them would find their way into a crucible or at the bottom of a lake or something like that. Not
Oops.
not saying, not encouraging, not suggesting, just saying that that's a possibility.
Well, you also raised the point. There's so few of them. It's not worth coming after the America the Beautiful.
Yeah,
They make so few of them.
yeah. I mean, if you look at last year, they only produced 212,000 total, and this year they they may they may hit 277,000.
Right. And you're talking still under 2 million ounces of silver.
I love it. So I would encourage people to at least take a look at them as far as adding them to your stack or whatever. Like Lewis was saying, if you're looking at adding 5 ounces to your stack, maybe look at these because the premium's going to be about the same. It's not that much difference, especially when they first come out. But the aftermarket, that's where you can really do quite well with them. Because I know I've
Other
seen,
other other than the ones that had 126 700 mintages from 2011.
Yeah.
Those get on special, so basically the same price as new issued coin. But all the others, they have some type of premium on.
Yeah, those
In the 30s, the 30,000, 40,000, the ones with 20,000 mintage, as we mentioned, they can sell for $200-$300.
yep.
And you can buy now the new issue ones. I think you said you got one for $106, the Teddy Roosevelt or the.
Yeah, I got the Teddy Roosevelt for 106. That's for 5 ounces.
Right. How much would it cost you to buy 5 Silver Eagles?
About the same.
Maybe even a little more.
Maybe. The American Silver Eagles. The first of the year, they were selling crazy. There were all this wild speculation about 50
60 million.
million, 60 million. I mean, and it looks like we're going to wind up at 37 million. What do you think happened,
As
Lewis?
well, Rory, you had said we had a conversation twice early in the year, and I was saying that they might sell 45, 50 million, and my main concern was not that there would be a new record, but they just wanted to make sure that they wouldn't have a shortage, so they'd produce a large amount. What you said was no, they're not going to. They don't even want to get close to record territory. They want it to be nothing to see here. And we both said, and that was the reason they were flooding the market, at least the authorized purchasers early, to make sure that they were fully stocked and that there was no buying panic because there was no shortage to be found. And that's what ended up happening. They sold record amounts to the authorized purchasers, but they in turn didn't sell record amounts at retail. And then we had that news that they had stopped producing Silver Eagles. And around the time that they had made that announcement, we saw a couple of months where sales were very low. They're only in the 1.2, 1.5 million in July, August, and September. And then they came back in October, and you had speculated, Rory, that that's just whatever they have left that they're forcing on to the authorized purchasers. And I did some checking, and in my research, when I track the online bullion dealer sites, I try to take a look in the morning, in the afternoon, and the end of the day at how much is being sold. And I don't see much silver being sold when you update and refresh the numbers. I did see the gold, though, selling a lot. So I think when you're seeing these U.S. Mint numbers in October and now in November, where the sales are somewhat increasing, I think you're right, Rory. That's more of a function of just getting rid of the 37 million American Silver Eagles they've already produced, getting ready for next year.
Right.
As opposed to meeting the demand that I don't really see out there.
Well, I think that the demand is elevated. It brings
Well,
into. Go ahead.
No, you're right. It's elevated. It's just not at 50, 55, 60 million at the pace that it was earlier in the year. The retail sales are good, but they're not going gangbusters like they were last year at this time.
Well, last year at this time there was still the panic because you had the Royal Canadian Mint was sold out of several of their products. You had the
10
uh,
ounce.
yeah, the 10 ounce and the 1 ounce maple leafs were struggling too,
Right.
and the American Silver Eagles were still struggling, and so you had this whole dynamic going on that you don't have this year at all. As a matter of fact, you have the exact opposite. Now, what's happening is that in 2017 in January, and this is something that I'd said to you in an email, is that now these guys have a gargantuan headline for 2016 American Silver Eagle sales, and that they were way down by 10 million ounces.
Yep.
And that is going to play out across the board, across the mainstream media. Stay away from silver, stay away from gold.
Yep.
They'll just tag gold along with it because that's what people look at. They don't really look at silver, but silver is going to lead the way. Silver is going to lead the way and there's going to be these gargantuan headlines all over the mainstream media that silver is abysmal. It's just
Down
terrible.
20%, sales down 20%, even though there were record sales the last 3 years, 2013, 14, and 15. But if you put 37 million ounces of Silver Eagles in perspective, it's still a ridiculous number compared to the amount that they used to sell between 1986 and 2008.
Yeah, it's 3 times.
It's still the fifth best year ever.
The fifth best year ever.
Well, the last 3 years were higher, right? So you
Yes,
had
they were all well above 40.
over 4. You had 40, 42, and 47. Then you had another year that was I'll pull it up here. That was about, I think this will be the fifth largest ever, because 2008, remember, while there was a big rush at the end of the year, they ran out. They were out of compliance with the law because they didn't have enough to sell at the time, and but so their sales were hindered in 2008. Then 2009, if you remember, gold was the big seller. That's where people go to in crisis first. They don't go to
Right.
silver. And then as silver played catch up and started to move higher. Okay, so I got the charts here. All right, yeah. So 39 million in 2010, 11, 2012. Okay. And then you had, as I mentioned, this will be the fifth largest because 13, 14, and 15 were over 40. 12 was 39.87. We won't hit that. But then 11 looks like 34. And then we've already passed 2013, which is like 32 or 33. So, so this year will be the fifth largest amount. And put it in perspective, if you go back to before the financial crisis, the sales were between the 6 and 7, 8 million ounces a year.
Right. A year, not a month, a year.
No, a year, absolutely. So there's still a robust demand for silver. It's just that, and it'll be interesting to see what 2017 brings.
It really will. I'm interested to see if they're going to implement the same type of program that they did this year, as far as forcing the hand of the authorized purchasers to take on all this inventory to avoid any type of shortages or any type of headline that brings attention to gold or silver. And I really want. Go ahead.
The reason we mentioned this, Rory, is, and then we flipped our perspective because of the lower sales. But you and I had mentioned that if the U.S. Mint really continued to sell 50 million ounces, and the Canadian Mint 40 million ounces, and the Austrian, and you start to put together 250, 300 million ounces of silver sold in the form of coins and rounds. And then you have India wanting to buy 300 million ounces a year. There's not much left for industry. And I think, this is designed because there's only 850 million ounces approximately mined every year. You really can't have this type of investment demand, the coin demand, go from 5% to 25% and to continue to rise like that.
Right.
Because the pie is only a certain size. Just because the demand increases, we've seen that silver mining this year has gone off a little bit. It's not going to continue to increase to 850, 900. That's just not happening in the plans of the miners to even be able to mine that much. So they're kind of stuck with this pie of about 850 million ounces plus whatever they can get from scrap. You really can't have people buying 300 million ounces of silver coins and rounds and bars every year.
And that's
not if you expect the industry to continue to have the same demand that it has.
And that 300 million ounces that you're referring to is only the top 4 or 5 government mints around the world.
Oh no, I'm including everything. No, if you estimate all the rounds and all the top mints. That last year I think it was about 250 million ounces, because the U.S. Mint sold 47, Canadian 40. I think I had done a blog post showing that the top mints, the top 4, I think they sold 112. I don't have it in front of me, but 120 million. And then we calculated there was probably an equal amount or something close to that sold in generic rounds and bars.
Yeah, the private mints.
And the Silver Institute kind of backed that concept up. They upped their number. So the numbers the last 3 years are really increasing. As I mentioned, in 2005, coin and bar demand was only 5% of overall silver demand.
And this doesn't take into account
And now it's 20,
also
now it's almost 25%.
doesn't take into account the 200 million ounces that goes to silverware every year, and that's just
And jewelry, right.
and jewelry. I mean, that's so you add those two together, we'll say it's 450 million ounces.
It's over half.
It's over half.
And that's a problem because silver was, the industrial, they used to say, was 70, 80% of silver demand, and now it's closer to 50.
Exactly. But they're still going to show the numbers that it is, 70% going to industrial, but they're not going to be able to manipulate that number very much longer because the numbers are they're right there.
But what's interesting, the Silver Institute just put out their report, and they put it out every year, and every year it shows a deficit. And deficits don't matter, because they show there's a shortage, and yet it doesn't show up in the price. So it's obvious that supply demand, physical supply demand, has nothing to do with price. Look what's happening in India with gold. Massive demand the last couple of weeks because of that cash ban that the prime minister put in place. There actually is a premium for gold now in India. Some say 66%. They're saying they're paying $2,800. So at least locally, people are willing or will pay a price over the spot price. But it just shows you how they manipulate the spot price and has nothing to do with supply and demand. It's only because those poor Indians realize if they don't get rid of those rupees and get something of value for them, they're going to be out of luck. So it's better to, in a way, pay twice as amount for the gold than it is to still be holding on to those rupees,
which are completely worthless. And this has been part of their
unless they put them in the bank, or unless they can get them exchanged, unless they can make it to a bank, or they want to wait 6 hours in a line. So they rather go to the jewelry store and get some gold for those rupees.
This is something that they have known for hundreds of years, that the government constantly messes with their currency. And that's a big part of why they hold gold. Not only is it the cultural aspect of it, but another big part of the reason that Indians hold gold, physical gold, is because they have seen this movie played out over and over and over and over again.
It's a crime because
it is a crime.
Even Bloomberg had a story that there are people who have committed suicide, people have died of heart attacks waiting in the heat in the line. And then you get this Bill Gates guy out there. Oh, this is a good thing. Eventually it'll all work out. Sure. So a few people have to die so that you can get your digital economy. And then also there are people supporting it. They're just saying, oh, this is just a currency exchange. No, it's not. When you have a normal currency exchange, it happens over time. It doesn't happen on TV. The guy makes an announcement and tells you the next day you can't use them anymore, and you're going to have to, if you want to get your value, put them in a bank and start entering the digital world and enhancing your digital experience. And it's forced.
It's forced.
And they have no choice. And a lot of people can't make it to a bank. A lot of people... There's also people who own rupees. Maybe they live in London, and maybe they have 400 rupee notes worth of notes. They're not going to fly to England fly from England to India. It's going to cost more so they're going to lose that money too. It's going to cost more than the airfare.
Unless
this was done, and this was done. They knew they were going to do this.
Right.
They didn't have enough notes prepared on purpose. Now they're saying it'll be 6 months before they'll be able to come up with enough currency to cover what they pulled. They did this in shock and awe, and really, and I don't even know why the people. There's still, from what I understand, there's people in India that are defending this move. Something had to be done about corruption.
Right.
It's like something has to be done about car accidents, so you just close all the roads. That's. Yeah, I could agree. Maybe something has to be done about corruption, but this is how you handle it?
See, and that was the argument that I was making on the last Shadow of Truth when Dave and I were talking, is that if you're talking about a a banknote that has the equivalent of a $7.50
All it is.
U.S. dollars, and another banknote that has a $15 equivalent U.S. dollar value. And this is the crux of corruption and terrorism was the other
Right.
was the other argument that they were making. It's like, how ridiculous is that? I
This isn't
mean,
even the $100 and €500 notes that they want to pull out. This amount, pulling those notes is the equivalent of them pulling out maybe like the $10 and the $20 notes here.
exactly.
And I read it's 86 to 88% of the then current circulating cash. So basically,
Wow.
if 80% of their economy is cash based, and now they can't use that cash anymore
Wow.
because there's very little cash around. And also, if you had larger amounts and you wanted to exchange them, they only allow you to exchange, I think, 4,500. One step further, Roy, it makes it even more onerous. If you have to prove like that's your money. Okay, how are you going to do that? It's the same thing. You're guilty until proven innocent, and then if you can't prove, you got to pay the tax on it, and then you don't pay the normal tax rate. You pay 200 times the tax rate.
Oh my
So if you were
goodness.
going to pay 30%, well, now you got to pay 90%. And then the argument is very few people pay the 30% tax rate. It's always justified that, like the most draconian part, well, very few people died
Right.
waiting in line. It's almost like this is greater good that they're trying to achieve. And they're not going to achieve anything because probably the biggest source of corruption is probably in the government itself. And I understand, I've heard reports they're bribing the tax people. They're, so
Bribing everybody.
the cash now they're going to have to go after gold. But the thing is, the more of these types of laws you make, the more corruption you create because people are going to try to
Correct.
get out of it because they probably feel that they're robbing them
They know they're
unjustly.
robbing them.
Of course, some people don't. Some people think it's like for the good of India to wait in line for and maybe get a few, maybe get their value, and they say I'm happier. See, there are people can be satisfied with. Now I have a credit card. Now I have a debit card. Now I have online banking. This is a good thing. We're entering into the 21st century. We don't want to be this backwards country anymore. So they can sell that. I wouldn't be happy.
Do you really think that the rural Indian farmer is concerned about that? About whether or not they're entering into the 21st century or not? I would
Or
say
want to
I would argue that they could care less.
No, do you really think that they wake up in the morning and say, "How can I enhance my digital experience?" I don't think.
Oh,
I think it's funny. Is the reaction to it is not what I would have expected. I would just have expected outrage across the board, and yet it's the concept of those who would give up. Uh, what is it? The
give up a little security
security.
for a little freedom or liberty.
Yeah,
Give up a little
for liberty.
security for
Deserve,
or give up a
deserve
little
neither.
liberty. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
it's the
that's what's
same here.
happening.
It's basically, well, if it helps eliminate corruption, I'm all for it. Well, it's not going to eliminate corruption, and you're just going to have your money stolen, or maybe you commit suicide because you lost your life savings. Because you can't, if you bring let's say you have a lot of cash, you bring it to the bank, you say, okay, deposit it. They're not, first of all, they won't exchange for it because they won't give you much. And that's money without taxing it first. Well, now you're wiped out.
Now you're wiped
And
out
and maybe you've done absolutely nothing wrong, other than happen to live in India and happen to save your money in rupees instead.
instead of gold. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
they are making the best argument, in my opinion, for citizens around the world to get out of the system, GOTS, as Jim Sinclair calls it, to get out of the system as quickly as possible. I mean,
Well, what?
we had Cyprus in 2012 or
Right?
2013, and now we've got, which was a teeny tiny little island nation, and now we have the second largest, most populous nation
A
in the
billion people.
world. I mean, it's the second most populous country, period. And all
Right.
of a sudden they wake up and this has been thrust upon them, and their lives are ruined. Their
Thrust
wealth is,
officiously.
yes, almost at gunpoint.
And here's the thing that highlights a government can say, your money, the money that I created, that I let you use, is now not worth anything, or it's only worth something on the terms and conditions that I will impose on you on TV on 24 hours notice.
Right.
They cannot do that to gold. They can't say, hey, guess what? I go on TV tomorrow and say, I declare gold worthless. Okay. Oh,
That's fine.
go ahead. You got anything else you want to say? Do you want to declare that the sun doesn't shine? Do you want to declare that the grass doesn't grow? Anything else you want to like say by fiat? And that really drives home the point. I don't care what reason they have for it. They've basically told you, guess what? Your money is only what we say it is and when we say it. And we can change that whenever we want. And when people say, oh, no, 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 they're doing it for it doesn't matter what the reason is. The fact that they can do it is means that it's shifting sands and you do not have the value of that money.
You don't have anything. You have a piece of paper that, if you look at the way that the Federal Reserve notes are designed, they are a miniature contract that says that the holder of this currency, of this note, this Federal Reserve note, is now liable to the Federal Reserve to pay interest to them for the use of this contract. That's what it says. And that's the way
And
that it's laid out.
and they can decide, I don't care what that note says. Forget
Right.
about that.
Forget about it. We're going to issue a new one. Oh, we're not even going to issue a new one. We're going to issue you a piece of plastic that says, this is how much credit that you have.
Right.
This is how much debt you can build up. And that's it. Oh, and if we don't like you, we'll just hit delete and your account goes away, and that's
Right.
it. Have a good day.
They have total control over the value of the money that you think you have. And that's, I think, the reason they get away. People do not understand what money is.
Right.
Money is something that actually has value in and of itself that you can use and exchange it with other people because they recognize the value, not because an entity tells you it has the value.
Right.
Because the entity can decide. See, think about it. The entity just decided, the government of India said, these notes, tomorrow when you wake up and you go to the storekeeper can't use them. You can't give them to the storekeeper. All you can do if you want the value of those coins is to bring them to the bank, and you can deposit them, or you can get a certain amount, a very small amount of the limited amount of new notes that we have in exchange for them. Otherwise, he said, they become nothing but worthless pieces of paper.
Which is
Now,
where they started.
well, no. Actually, they weren't. Because you could buy things with them. So that's what people say the dollar is worth. They're not worthless if the government still says they have value and hasn't demonetized them or devalued them. You can still use them and buy goods and services with them. But there's a caveat. They can always say, no, you can't anymore. And that's exactly what India did. So you cannot use these anymore. You have to either give them back to us, and we might give you a small amount in return. But we want you to prove to us that you own these legitimately. If not, we're going to tax you. And if we don't have enough currency, because we didn't print up enough on purpose, you have to deposit them in the bank, and we'll hand you where you can go on your computer, you can see how many rupees you now have.
Yeah, even though you gave us 1,000, the equivalent 1,000 American dollars in rupees, and you go on your account and it's only 800 equivalent American dollars in rupees.
That's it. the whole thing. Basically, the other
Oh
way
my
is
God.
you can also look at it. Not only is it a theft from the people, who gets all this money? The
Who
banks.
gets it?
So when the banks get it, and I'm sure they have the same system they have here, they get recapitalized for nothing.
For
They don't
nothing.
have to they don't have to market to the people, "Hey, mom and dad, got a little extra money? How about we offer you a 2% note and deposit your money with us?" No, they have the government do it for them. So people are lining up to put money into these banks that could otherwise get the Indians to do it.
Because they were busy buying physical gold.
Or busy just stuffing the rupees under their mattress, thinking I don't need a bank account. Now they're told, no, you have to have a bank account.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't have the money. Doesn't work if it's not in the bank account. That's the whole problem here. Is that they're telling you they're in collaboration with the banks. Put the money in the bank, and then we all will track it, tax it, and you'll be better off. Your digital experience will be enhanced.
Your digital experience will be enhanced.
That's what one of the RBI guys said, Royal
Man.
Bank of India, that he was trying to act like, look, there's not a problem. Yes, there'll be a period of time where you won't be able to have notes or anything, but I encourage you, you know, take a look at what has the bank has to offer. Not voluntarily. You have to if you want to keep any of your value of the money that you had. Try these credit cards, try this debit card, enhance your digital experience. And you'll be helping India in doing so. Well, you know what helped India in the first place was not doing this. I know, they created an emergency, and now they ask you to be patriotic. If we really could get through this together, if you would all just
Do what we say.
do what we say.
When we say it. And don't panic. Whatever you do, don't panic.
24-hour notice. First of all, what Nixon did when he closed the gold window in 1971, he just goes on TV, interrupts a nice TV show, and he says, international speculators, bugaboo, and a bunch of nonsense. Then he says, from now on, central banks can't exchange their dollars for gold. All right. That didn't totally disadvantage the other countries because they could still use their own currency. It actually made the dollar go down. It was unilateral. It was heavy-handed. But it didn't cause the type of distress that you take everyday people and tell them, tomorrow morning you can't use, or the morning after, they give them 24 hours, you can't use the money you have anymore. And the other thing is, Rory, put aside the personal hardship, go to the macro level. How do people conduct business now?
Exactly.
It's not like all of a sudden they have a credit card, or all of a sudden, they got PayPal, or all of a sudden they've got Bitcoin, or all of a sudden they have got. Most of the people don't have any way to transact for normal necessities. I mean, they're in massive barter scene right now.
Yes.
They have to be.
They have to be because, didn't you say that 80% of their
86%. Yes, that's the. It wasn't like they took the 500 euro note out of circulation, and very few people have 500 euro notes. They took the $5, $10, and $20 bill out of circulation, or the $1. I mean, basically, I don't know what we use the most, but the other thing is, it doesn't matter what we as Americans use the most. Most of our transactions are already digital. 80% of theirs are not. They're cash. So it actually would be more like if tomorrow Obama went on TV and says, tomorrow you can't use your credit card or your debit card, and you must use cash. Well, there's not enough cash. There isn't. Physical cash for people to find it and then be able to go and spend their money. Everyone would be lining up the bank trying to get cash. There isn't that much cash. 2/3 of American cash supply is overseas. There's only about $680 billion worth of cash in the United States.
It's not very much.
No. So that would be the equivalent for us to think about if the president went on TV tomorrow night and said, Monday morning, you can't use your credit card, you can't use your bank card, you can't use PayPal, you have to use cash. Well, there isn't any cash, and how are we going to get it? Well, we got to go to the bank and line up, and they're going to tell us, well, we can give you $50. We're And then maybe it's just like with Cyprus, right? And maybe you can come
Exactly.
back. Maybe you can come back and get another $50 next week. How do you pay your bills? How do you buy food? How do you do anything?
How do you do it? How do you conduct your life? And once
Now,
again, uh,
multiply this by 4, the Indian population, it's chaos.
it's unbelievable.
And it's this higher goal, this get rid of corruption, fight terrorism, create a stronger central government.
It's mind-boggling. I mean,
It's
it really is.
outrageous.
It's outrageous.
They could have come up with a plan to gradually transfer people over to the digital. I understand that. People could choose, but they didn't want any choice in the matter at all, and they wanted to accelerate it. It's war, actually.
It really is. It's a war against. It's a war between the government and the citizens of that country.
Yeah.
The government of that country has declared war against its own citizens.
Because basically it's saying every Indian is a potential form of corruption.
Or
Because
terrorists.
we don't trust them with the money.
We don't trust them.
It's just like everyone on the road is a drunken driver. So we're going to close all the roads. And you're just going to have to find a way to get where you're going some other way.
Well, Lewis, I think we've given them quite a bit to chew on there.
Okay.
I mean, we've gone through the ATBs, the ASEs, and now India's cash problem. Not cash problem, I'm sorry. Government problem.
It's a lot. It's a lot. The decision that an Indian has to make what they're going to do tomorrow is a lot greater than whether to buy 5 American Silver Eagles or 1 American the Beautiful coin. That's for sure.
That's for sure. I feel for them. I really do.
I mean that's a luxury to think you have $100 and you want to spend it on 5 ounces
In the
of
way
silver.
that you want to.
Exactly.
Instead of the way you're told to.
Yeah.
Well, we've been speaking with Louis Cammarosano, and you can find all of Louis's great work and analysis over at smallgold.com, and that's SMAULGLD.com. Louis, appreciate all the time, all the wisdom, and look forward to doing it again in the future.
Thanks, Rory.